Today, I want to talk about pre-lodgement meetings. In particular, I want to look at what are they, what are the different types in terms of costs and timeframes, when do you do them, why do you do them, all of that fun kind of stuff. So I will warn you guys, I had my first meeting at 6:45 this morning. I'm currently between meeting number 3 and meeting number 4, and I've only had an itty bitty half coffee so far. So I'm absolutely primed to waffle today, to go off on tangents, to go down some weird and wonderful rabbit holes. So to help save you guys that experience, I have written myself a little cheat sheet, a little summary of the points that I want to cover off. So as we're going along, I will continue to refer to that cheat sheet just to make sure I stay on track and don't waste too much of your time. So first things first, what are they? Well, pre-lodgement meetings, quite simply, are a pre-lodgement meeting. So they're a meeting that you have with council or the state government or whoever the assessing authority is prior to lodging a development application, or DA. Now, what are the different types? Each council has a bucket load of different types. Brisbane City Council has a whole heap of different add-ons that you can do. But at its core, in Brisbane City Council, there are 3 key pre-lodgement meetings. The first is the basic, the second is the standard, and the final one is the fast track. So the basic is kind of like a informal chitty chat, maximum half an hour. It's intended to just give high-level initial kind of feedback. Now, the fee for that one, I think off the top of my head, is $548 based on current financial year rates. Don't quote me on it. Just over 500, just under 550, something like that. The second one, the standard one, you get an hour of council's time, and that one's just over $1,000. I think it's 109.6. And then the final one, the fast track one, technically speaking, is supposed to be reserved for pre-purchase discussions, and that one's like $1,700, $1,800, something like that. Just say a bit under $2,000. Now, in terms of turnaround times for the basic and the standard, really roughly speaking, you're looking at about 4 weeks notice that you need to give before you can get a meeting date. When it comes to the fast track, it's roughly half that. Now, council is always trying to turn those ones around faster, but yeah, I usually tell clients allow 2 to 3 weeks just to be safe. So we've covered off the types in terms of costs and timeframes. Next on my list is when do you do them? Each town planner is going to have a different perspective on this. Me personally, I think there is 2 questions you need to ask, let's just say. So the first is, are you entering, I won't say uncharted, let's say less charted. Are you entering less charted territory? So are you doing something that it's not cookie cutter, it hasn't been done a million times before by everyone else in the industry? Are you kind of going into waters that people haven't necessarily sailed through on a regular basis before? Are you doing something a bit out of the box? And so that's the first criteria. The second criteria is, would you not go ahead with the purchase of that property if you could not get that exact outcome? So do you have a plan A to Z, or are you all your eggs in one basket and you're like, it's option A and option A only? Or are you worried that if you go down option A pathway and have to change to option B pathway, that it's going to suddenly result in consultants restarting all of their modeling for hydraulic stuff, or starting the design process from an architectural perspective or design perspective all over again? Like, that makes sense. I really need that coffee this morning. What I'm trying to say is, would it force them to redo the design process from the very beginning? And therefore, are you up for a bucket load of delays, extra duplication costs, all of that sort of stuff by changing from one pathway to the next type thing? If so, yeah, you probably want to ask some questions up front so you can get on the right pathway from the very beginning. So just to recap, if you're looking at when you do it, for me personally, it's when you're going through less charted territories where there is not that track record, or what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, we can't go back and see how everyone else has done it before you. So when you don't have that track record behind you, and when the purchase is contingent on it, or where you know you're going to have a massive amount of duplication in terms of costs and timeframes for consultants, that's when you want to do a pre-lodgement meeting. In every other situation, and I won't bore you with the details as to why I think this, but every other situation, normally my response is, nah, rip the band-aid off, dive straight into a DA, let's just get this ball rolling. Now, why do you want to do it? Well, I personally think there's 2 key reasons. First and foremost, to get access to the information on the inside. Now, when I stopped working for council, one of the biggest things I struggled with, and I still struggle with it to today, is the lack of information that you have at your fingertips on the outside world. So back when I was in council, if I got an inquiry, I could dive deep down the rabbit hole of the history. I could access the building cards, the pre-2000 history online. I could call history files, all of that sort of stuff. I could look up complaint registers. I could look up just anything I wanted. It was there at my fingertips. And that helps give you a little bit more insight into what the issues are with the property and all that sort of stuff. So on the outside world, we don't have access to that information, that level of information just readily at our fingertips. So we sometimes do a pre-lodgement meeting just to find out what's on council's system. I say sometimes, because if there's a heap of recent DAs in the area, so development applications in the area, often you can look at those to gauge the inside or to gather the inside information. You don't need to do a pre-lodgement meeting. But yeah, if there's no recent history in the area or no recent history on similar applications that would have raised those similar issues, then often we'll do the pre-lodgement meeting just to make sure there's nothing hiding in council system that's going to throw us a curveball, potentially stop the application from going ahead, or increase the costs from a construction perspective for whatever reason. So that's the first, and then the second is to get feedback. So if it's a new way of approaching an issue, so this happens all the time with engineering stuff. We want to try or tackle, what's the word I'm looking for? We want to approach an issue from a different angle, try something different. Then we'll do a pre-lodgement meeting to float that idea. Or if it's a politically sensitive issue or political hot potato, we might talk to council about it just to get some feedback, again, to make sure we're on the right path before we charge ahead. So yeah, 2 reasons: get access to information and get feedback on something that's a bit out of the box, let's just say. Now, there's a few things, I think it's 4 things actually, I just wanted to throw at you at the end here, 4 random points. First and foremost, the quality of information that you give council determines the quality of information that you get back from council or state government, whoever it is, in those meetings. So if you just go in with like a one-liner that says, yo, plan to do a 1 into 10 lot subdivision, you're going to get very vague feedback from council. However, if you go in and go, hey, here's a concept proposal plan, here's some initial feedback from the ecologist, here's some initial feedback from the acoustic and consultant, etc., you're going to get more feedback on those specific issues. Next is they are commercial in confidence, which means they're kind of like private, secret discussions. They don't get published on Development Eye. The only way that any member of the public or anyone out there would ever get access to them, if they didn't get them direct through the client or the owner of the property or whatever, would be if the town planner submitted it with the future application. So if we're lodging an application after doing a pre-lodgement meeting, if that meeting was all hunky-dory, happy days, said, yep, we're supporting it, we'll include the meeting minutes as part of the material we're lodging with council. Just so it's kind of paints the picture and helps to tell the story for any external viewers like public and all of that sort of stuff. Now, next thing is these days they are virtual, 99% of the time. So like the rest of the world, post-COVID, council has moved to a virtual world. You can still have the in-person meetings, but if you want in-person, it's usually going to take longer because council, again, like most workforces out there, are juggling a more hybrid kind of model these days. Staff members do have the option to work from home, whether it's 1 day, multiple days, whatever. So if you want to wait for an in-person meeting, you've got to wait a time or an extended period of time to get to a point where everyone is in the city at that day or everyone can get to the city on that day. So yeah, you can do it, but it takes longer. I'd probably say 99% of the time, I just opt for the virtual online one. The only situation where I'd ever do in person these days is if it's a really meaty kind of job, like it's really controversial, there's going to be a lot of nuances to it, and I want to be able to pick up on that body language in the room. That's the situation where I'd probably hold out for a in-person meeting. Now, last but not least, and this is not a favorable, no, what's the word I'm looking for? People don't like hearing this, but it's the truth. They are not binding. So council has done a bucket load of work over the years, let's just say, to ensure that the team members in the meetings are more senior staff and that they are giving more accurate advice. So they're seeking feedback from more stakeholders, more people within council, so the feedback is more accurate. However, the cold, hard truth, the reality is they have not done a detailed review by the time they have that meeting minute. So they will always put a disclaimer in the meeting minutes or in any discussions they have to say, hey, look, detailed assessment has not been done. This is subject to change. They don't say it that bluntly, but that's the cold, hard reality. And before everyone gets up in arms and angry about it, the reality is they've only had, I don't know how long they spend to do the reviews before the meeting, but let's say half an hour. They've had half an hour to look at this, and they've only looked at your little bit of information that you submitted with the pre-lodgement meeting. They haven't sat down and done a detailed full review of all the consultant reports and all of that sort of stuff. So it is inevitable, unavoidable. Let's go unavoidable. It's unavoidable. The reality is at some point, council is going to turn around and just be like, oh, awkward. So, you know how we said, yeah, that could be supported, or yeah, that's all good. Yeah, so now we've gone to that detailed level. We've kind of worked out there's a few more little issues here that we kind of need to address. So it is very rare these days, but you do need to keep in mind the only way to get 100% locked in certainty is to go through the development application process. So we've covered off, let's just recap. What are they? They're a pre-lodgement meeting. Pretty straightforward. The different types, each council is different. Brisbane City Council has 3 different types. Then when it comes to when do you do them, uncharted territory, Plus, either you wouldn't buy the property or it's going to be duplicating fees for consultants and all of that sort of stuff. Why do you do them? To get access to the council information and to get feedback on out of the box ideas. And then there's those handful of extra comments or extra features that I just want to say. Features? Why did I say features? Points. Let's go with that. Points that I want to throw in at the end. Okay, I think that covers off everything I want to talk about today. As I always like to say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane Town Planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.